noble goal, and they have incredibly strong technology backgrounds, as well as a good understanding of economic history, especially monetary history. And it gives me a great deal of comfort as I think about the governance of the ecosystem, much more so than I think we would find in other financial ecosystems. And just to give you an example of that, I think 2 years, we were talking about, there's a big debate about reorganizations, I know, in the Ethereum network right now. Well, we saw the core Bitcoin developers and others at work back in 2019 when Binance tried to reorganize in order to reclaim 7,000 Bitcoin that were hacked. And they just wouldn't allow it. So we've already had some very good tests of the Bitcoin ecosystem, including developers. So that would be my answer, Steve.
Thank you. And it's a great transition to the next topic area, which is Bitcoin ethos. And what is Bitcoin ethos? I mean, Bitcoin was born as open source and it's very transparent. There's also a staunch defense from the community around decentralization and a lot of the core principles of Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about that and what makes it special. Jack, Square has done a lot to support open source Bitcoin. Can you tell us a little bit about what Square has done and what advice you'd have for other institutions looking to follow in its footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, I was very skeptical of corporations when I was a kid, and I'm still skeptical of corporations today. And, as we've used corporations to be, they've been great vessels for what we need to do and the ideas that we need to bring to the world. But, Bitcoin is not that. And when we were considering Bitcoin and how Square intersected, I was really concerned with how we don't disrupt the community in a negative way, how we promote what is amazing about it, and how we help it grow in that way, in the way that it wants to. So we created your team, Steve, which is Square Crypto, which is hiring open source developers to work on whatever they want and whatever they think is most important to help Bitcoin. We created an organization called Copo, which we gave up all of our crypto patents so that the community can use them in defense against trolls and some crazy characters we won't name. And we continue to find ways that, following that Bitcoin path, we're going to create a hardware wallet. We're probably going to do a lot more in hardware. Everything that we do in the space is going to be completely open source, from the hardware design to the software, taking in the community's push. And we're building a developer platform as well in the same open development, open source, and completely transparent. So I think as institutions or companies like ours consider getting in the space, I think contribution back to the community is important. Tesla did this with accepting payments for Tesla and finding security holes and improving the stack. And as I said before, we can't just see this as an asset that we own and an investment vehicle. This is something that has the potential to change everything and make the lives of everyone on this planet better in some small, maybe marginal way, but those margins will be meaningful as they compound over time.
Great. Elon, you've tweeted before that any wallet that doesn't give the user their private keys should be avoided at all costs. Can you tell us more about why is that important, and how does what's its relationship with decentralization?
Well, it's difficult to say that if you own crypto in an exchange and the exchange does not give you your private keys, it's not clear that you own anything. I mean, if there's something that, if that exchange breaks or is hacked or or is subject to seizure by the government or something like that, your crypto is gone. So in order to actually have a properly decentralized finance, which I'm a fan of, I think it makes sense. Then you have to own your private keys, and you should be the only one who has your private keys. So if you're the only one who has the private keys, then you own it. if someone else has your private keys, effectively they own it too, and the security of your crypto is then dependent upon them or any entity that can affect them. So yeah, I think what Jack's doing sounds like a good idea to have a hardware wallet that's the only thing that contains your private keys. I think that's like in terms of sort of empowering the people, which I very much believe in. Then I think you want to have people have their own wallets and be the only ones that have the private keys to that wallet, so-called wallet, the other side of the of the crypto.
Right. I agree, and I think we'll see an emergence too of new solutions that use multi-sig, like with a 2 or 3 keys, where the user has 2 keys, and then you get assisted custody by having an institution hold a 3rd key. Can be a good solution as well. Yeah.
Well, you can just put your private key in something that has dual access or voting access as an application on an existing network.
Right. So the Bitcoin community is known for staunchly defending Bitcoin's principles. Sometimes it can be rude and aggressive, but I think what it stems from is just a desire to not have wealthy or powerful people or institutions negatively impacting Bitcoin or sort of changing the rules in favor of them. I'm curious to hear from each of you what role you feel like you and your own institutions, your own companies, what role can you play in Bitcoin, and how do you positively impact it without having these negative drawbacks? Kathy, maybe start with you.
Sure. Yes. Well, ARC has stood for 2 things: democratization and transparency. Democratize it. We're the closest you'll find to a venture capital fund in the public equity markets, and I kind of feel that Bitcoin, or we have Bitcoin's DNA from that point of view. One of the things in terms of democratization is education. We have one of our missions, values, is to educate, and I do believe that that some of Yacine El-Mandra's white papers. Yacine's our lead crypto analyst, who's worked very closely with you, Steve, on this conference, are helping the cause. We've done, and not only for retail investors, we found that we had to do a bit more when it came to institutional investors, just because of the way that they invest and the way they like to receive information. So just like in our investments, we've been the retail community has been more attracted to us first, and now the institutional community is coming along. So I do think our transparency of research, especially in the social world, social media, pushing our research out for free to anyone, is part of our way of helping the community. And I do think encouraging, and this is something that Jack just said, I would encourage the support of the Bitcoin core developer community. As I said before, it's amazing to me, having gotten to know some of them, how strong their sense of purpose is here. And so we'd like to be helpful in making that happen as well.
That's great. Jack, how about you? How do you view your own personal role and the companies you run?
I think my own personal role through the companies I run is to really push for more decentralization, like at everything that we intend to do with the wallet, being non-custodial, building a developer platform, focusing on non-custodial solutions. On the Square side is important, being completely open development and open source. But I also think it's important on the Twitter side as well. My biggest focus right now is on a decentralized social media protocol. We're calling it Blue Sky. It's super, super early, but we've learned a lot from what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin and why that's important. I've learned a lot. in that sense as well. And I think, just continuing to push on that thread and show it with our actions every single day in support of this community that's taught me so much, and I think will benefit so many people. That's what I'm focused on.
What about letting Twitter advertisers pay in crypto?
Yeah, I mean, I think enabling anyone. I mean, as you know, Elon, like if we had Bitcoin or native currency for the internet before Twitter started, like it just creates so many different business models that we wouldn't have to be so dependent upon advertising generally. And
Sure.
I do believe that that we have them, any form of payment that they want to use, we should be able to take. So okay. Absolutely, but I'm more focused on like how do we create economic incentives in the network itself without having to rely on advertising.
Yeah, it's just that the money has to come off of the crypto so-called coins, the hash strings, have to come off and get translated into real products and services. So the more sort of off-ramps there are to real products and services, even at the institutional level, although I mean there are certainly many small advertisers on Twitter, it seems like accepting Bitcoin, maybe some other cryptos for advertising payments on Twitter would be supportive of Bitcoin.
100%, and also looking at just general commerce
Sure.
through Twitter itself.
That was great. Sorry, what, Elon?
I was asking Jack if he's going to do it.
Oh. Can we get a product announcement today? Elon, how about you? You obviously you're a big personality on Twitter. What are your thoughts on your role and your company's role in Bitcoin and sort of preserving the ethos?
Yeah, I mean, I generally think we should do things that benefit the people as a whole and increase the probability that the future is good. So, I think to me, it just seems self-evident that we should kind of take these set of actions most likely to make the future good. And I think probably crypto or some of the cryptocurrencies will make the future better, most likely. It's not, I always think of these things in terms of probabilities, but I think it's probably better for there to be a prosperous Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, maybe some others in the future. And I think it can have an empowering effect for individuals and increase the power of the individual relative to government. And really, if you think of government is just a corporation in the limit. So sometimes some people are like against corporations, but for government. It's like, guys, government is just a corporation in the limit. It's the biggest corporation of all, and it's got a monopoly on violence. So if you don't like corporations, you should really hate government.
There you go. All right. We got about, we'll try to wrap up in 10 minutes. So let's move on to future of Bitcoin. So Tesla and Square have both put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Kathy, I'm curious to hear from you. What advice would you have for other institutions looking to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet?
Well, I guess the first piece of advice is, just make sure, and I actually learned this after both Square and Tesla put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. The Bitcoin is being treated as an intangible asset. And so we need to get FASB to reconsider this, because with an intangible asset, if the asset goes up in price, it can't be marked up on their books. But if it goes down, it must be marked down. So, there's some asymmetry there, which is, we need to change that given what we believe Bitcoin is. And I do believe if, I'll harken back to something, well, it was either Elon or Jack said, think about it. You take away the boundaries, the different currencies. Just think about how explosive growth could be, and how wide-reaching taking the friction out of the system could be. So, I would encourage corporations to think about that this ability to do business anywhere in the world. Ultimately, obviously, we're paving the way here. That's certainly a consideration. It also will serve as a hedge against inflation, especially, and as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of emerging markets that are suffering from significant inflation. In other words, the purchasing power of those populations is going down. So they are going to migrate to Bitcoin and other ways to preserve purchasing power. And again, being able to sell to them in that kind of currency would be very useful. I'd also suggest, once again, this idea of deflation, I think, is going to be a real thing. There's going to be good deflation caused by innovation, so demand will boom because of that. There's going to be bad deflation because so many companies out there have not been investing enough in innovation. Their products are going to go obsolete, and they're going to be stuck trying to service the debt that they piled on because their shareholders wanted profits and wanted them now. So they leveraged up to buy back their shares and pay dividends, and so I think that's going to be the source of bad deflation and counterparty risk. And we learned from 08-09 that counterparty risk can be devastating. Almost cataclysmic. So a hedge against that as well, I think, would be another reason to do it.
Great.
Yeah, it's funny. It kind of like Tesla's bank balances in Europe have negative interest rate. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, if you've got like 2% inflation and 1% interest, you're technically minus 1% return. But nonetheless, it is quite annoying to just see your bank balance drop in real time in Europe. Europe has negative interest rates. This is insane.
Yeah. Paying the banks, paying the banks to hold
the bank to keep your money. I'm like, what?
It is crazy.
Like, what? We should definitely move that into Bitcoin.
I believe Ray Dalio said, "Buy Bitcoin and not bonds." So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jack, you've talked about design being an underfunded area in Bitcoin, and Elon earlier mentioned usability could improve a lot. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. What do you see as the future of how can design impact Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Bitcoin network is beautifully designed as a protocol in the way it works. I mean, it went after a single problem, and it does in an absolutely astounding way. But I think the endpoints of people getting into it is still a little bit confusing. So I think the more energy we spend on wallets and making sure that wallets are simple and accessible and they're non-custodial as well. Yeah. I think the best example of this that I know of is probably this wallet called Moon. And it's just simple, straightforward. It's it does an amazing thing with key management that my mom and friends new to Bitcoin can understand. Does amazing in storage, and it also has a very clever implementation of Lightning, so that you can use it in a transactional way without having to think about it, just with QR codes in a way that makes sense. So more work like that, I think, really brings us forward.
Great. Let's wrap things up with a final question for each of you. I guess what is your hope for Bitcoin? How it can impact the world? Let's see, Elon, do you want to start with that? So what's your hope? What's your hope for Bitcoin?
Well, my hope for I guess crypto in general is that it can improve the efficiency of the information system that we call money. So if the core efficiency of money is improved and and money has less error, where, like I said, error is like any kind of government interference or fraud or anything like that, this will naturally lead to basically a better standard of living and more power to the individual, which I very much agree with.
Great. Kathy?
Yeah, and I would segue from what Elon just said is, money has powerful network effect qualities, and so we talked about ESG earlier. I think that of course that aspiration, having the this money be the best from an ESG point of view, that's really talking about solving some of the world's problems right now, which we definitely want to do. But I also am very excited about this idea of network effect and the convergence of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence from a technology point of view. I think, think about the internet in the earliest days. We couldn't imagine what was going to happen, but the impetus to growth was pretty incredible. So I am looking at this rules-based monetary policy, making for better lives around the world, as we've just said. But I'm also looking at the technology itself and the convergence between blockchain technology and artificial intelligence, to change the world in ways that we cannot imagine right now, solving even more problems, but creating more opportunities as well, which is the history of technology and disruptive innovation.
Jack, what's your hope for Bitcoin?
My hope is that it creates world peace, or helps create world peace. I mean, Elon said it earlier. Like we have all these monopolies of violence, and the individual doesn't have power. And the amount of cost and distraction that comes from our monetary system today is real, and it takes away attention from the bigger problems. Some of the bigger problems that Elon is trying to solve, like get us to a multi-planetary humanity. All these distractions that we have to deal with on a daily basis take away from those bigger goals that affect every single person on this planet, increasingly so. So it may sound a little bit ridiculous, but like you fix that foundational level and everything above it improves in such a dramatic way. So it's going to be long term, but my hope is definitely peace.
That's fantastic. Well, I'd like to thank all three of you for giving us your time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. The B word is not just this discussion, but we have a lineup of incredible speakers and content. So I encourage everyone to check it out. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Welcome everybody to the B word. I'm Steve Lee, the lead of Square Crypto, and I'm here today to moderate a discussion about Bitcoin that will span from what makes it special to the its relationship with energy, the community ethos, and the future of Bitcoin. I'm joined by three special guests. The first is Cathie Wood, founder, CEO, and CIO of ARK Invest. Next is Elon Musk, techno king of Tesla and chief engineer of SpaceX. And finally, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Square and CEO of Twitter. So we have a lot to talk about today. So let's get to the talk and get right to it. I'm going to start off by asking each of you a question.